Coming up next on Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable, the Supreme Court hears about same-sex marriage bans and questions continue over renovation plans at the State House of Representatives. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Jeremy Duda of the Arizona Capital Times, Howard Fisher of Capital Media Services, and Jim Small of the Arizona Capital Times. Trust me, they are all here. All eyes this week is on the U.S. Supreme Court's consideration of same-sex marriage bans. Jeremy, we'll start with you. Give us an indication, what exactly did the Supreme Court hear?
Well, this is the case that I think everyone's kind of been waiting years to see. The Supreme Court finally hearing this challenge to these same-sex marriage bans that so many states have and have been overturned in so much of the country due to appellate court rulings. One appellate court upheld them, and that's what they were deciding or there to hear on Tuesday. It was over equal protection grounds and.
Well, and the fascinating thing about this is there are really two issues out here, and it suggests we could have an interesting split opinion. Number one is, can states define marriage constitutionally? Is this a states' rights issue? Is this something the federal government has anything to do with? Is there, as Jeremy says, a 14th Amendment equal protection argument? The other becomes a more interesting interstate commerce argument almost, which is if a couple legally marries in California and moves to a state where it's not recognized, say Kansas, does Kansas have to recognize that contract which was legal in California?
Which was kind of considered by some Supreme Court watchers as a compromise possible, saying, all right, states can do what they want, but if one state says yes, you got to recognize it. Seems a little odd, though, doesn't it?
It does, and it seems like it may be difficult to kind of thread that needle in a way that makes legal sense. And it is an interesting question. I mean, it certainly, if a state's if a state is allowed to not let same-sex couples marry, but it's still forced to recognize those unions and adapt its laws to reflect that, kind of like, what's the point? And on the flip side, if they say that they're allowed to marry, but they don't have to be recognized, which I think is an argument that they almost couldn't do, then it almost makes you wonder, well, what's the purpose of even getting married?
Exactly.
And this the thing is, there is some precedent. For example, in some states, first cousins can marry. In fact, in Arizona, they can marry if they're over a certain age. Now, if you have a state, somebody coming to Arizona where first cousins can marry, Arizona does recognize. In fact, when we passed our laws dealing with not recognizing other states, we said we're going to recognize all other marriages except this particular category. So there is some precedent for that interstate compact argument.
And we heard one other, not new argument, but one that's kind of hasn't been heard as much throughout the years of this debate, that Chief Justice Roberts mentioned, which is, this has always been kind of that 14th Amendment issue, equal protection, whether these things are discriminatory against gays and lesbians. But the issue that Chief Justice Roberts raised was, well, is this just a straight up gender discrimination issue? If a man can marry a woman, why can't a woman marry a woman? Is that discriminating against them because they're gay, or is it discriminating based on their gender? And that some are viewing that as maybe a way where Roberts, who was kind of always expected to side with the same-sex marriage advocates, or the advocates of the bans, one way that he might be able to go the other way on this.
One of the interesting things I think that's in the court's mind is how far ahead of the public do they want to get? We go back to Roe versus Wade, and here we are decades later, the court having decided that abortion before viability is legal, we're still arguing that. And does the court really want to get out that far in front of the public?
Does the court also want to stop, okay the bans after it halted the bans leading up to the consideration?
Well, and I think that's one of the issues that makes a lot of people think that the court, and that's why you'd be hard pressed to find legal scholars or legal analysts leading up to this who thought that the court was going to uphold these bans, was because they had several opportunities to stay some of these appellate court rulings, and they didn't. And they let hundreds of thousands of marriages across the country effectively go through. I mean, it was 37 states now where either the people or the legislature or the courts have said that no, these marriages need to be allowed.
And let's go a step down the rabbit hole here, which is, if could the court say, okay, no more new gay marriages in states like Arizona, which has a constitutional amendment, but we really can't unmarry these people. They have formed a contract. Now do we have a different equal protection argument that this group was allowed to marry and this group wasn't? And you really open up some interesting legal possibilities there.
Ruling expected sometime this summer. The impact, though, in Arizona regarding adoption, religious freedom, as it's described, discrimination protection. What are we expecting out there?
Well, I mean, if they overturn or if they uphold the gay marriage bans, the impact here is pretty obvious. But if they rule that these are unconstitutional and the status quo here is allowed to stand, then you have so much in Arizona statute you have to start unraveling. You mentioned adoption laws, which Governor Ducey recently started making some executive orders as a kind of a workaround. But if you look at the rest of our statutes, anything that deals with marriage or a married couple, our tax statutes, for example, refer to a husband and wife, and all through Arizona revised statutes, you find the same thing: husband and wife, man and woman.
But that's the thing, and I heard you try to get a straight answer out of Mr. Brnovich last night. So, on one hand, he's saying, I want to wait for the Supreme Court, but then he goes ahead and cites, for example, 8-103, which deals with adoption. And it says a man and a woman may jointly adopt. Well, okay, my non-attorney reading the law is, that's no longer meaningful any more than the old Constitution used to say only men can hold office. Well, that obviously got superseded. I can see him making an argument, even assuming the Supreme Court says gays marry, that, well, until we litigate each and every little piece of this, that he's going to be essentially in this rearguard action.
And there is precedent for some of this before. We spoke with Paul Bender, I think last week, and he was talking about Loving versus Virginia, the famous Supreme Court case that got rid of interracial marriage bans. And he pointed out that there were so many laws in the books in these states that relied on that definition of marriage as being between two people of the same race, and they didn't go back and change a lot of those. They just kind of assumed they were automatically changed in a lot of cases.
All right, Supreme Court also this week heard a lethal injection case not involving Arizona, but involving an Arizonan, arguing the case. Talk to us about this.
Well, the issue is the court has always said lethal injections are okay. I mean, that executions are okay. They've turned away various bans. Arizona uses a protocol, as does Oklahoma, which the first injection, which is what's at issue here, is supposed to essentially put the person to sleep and make them impervious to pain, so that the other two injections, which really do irritate the inside, I mean, they can burn the inside of the body, are not felt. The question becomes, do we know this? We've had a couple of botched executions, one here and one in Oklahoma, where people didn't die right away, and there were indications that they were writhing in pain. Now, we can have a philosophical discussion of whether writhing in pain is appropriate. I mean, heck, one state allows the firing squad. But if we've made the policy decision that the only purpose of putting people to death is to keep them out of society, and it's not to punish them by one last bit of pain, then we have to decide, are these drugs appropriate?
And we should mention that this one particular drug is being used because previous drugs that were more effective and more efficient, if you will, the makers are saying, we don't want you using it for this anymore. And pretty soon, I think this drug company is going to wind up saying this. What's going on here?
Well, it's gotten harder and harder to get these drugs. So many companies don't want to be associated with it. A lot of them have business in the European Union, which will ban you from doing business there if you provide drugs for executions. Of course, executions there in Europe being illegal. And states have tried to find so many different ways around this inability to get drugs, with compounding pharmacies or trying new mixes, new drugs, which I think is how we ended up with the one that was before the Supreme Court this week. And at this point, you're starting to see a few states say, well, we got to start looking for alternative methods here. How we mentioned the firing squad, Utah, they went back to that as a condition if they can't get the lethal injection drugs they need. I think Oklahoma now is looking at a kind of an alternative protocol where they use nitrogen gas, I believe.
So is Arizona, do we expect Arizona to, what?
Well, a lot of it's going to, obviously, we're all like this one, sometime by the end of June, we'll have a ruling on this. If the Supreme Court concludes that there is a violation of the Eighth Amendment prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment, then it says to the state, okay, you can't use this drug. Okay, now we're down to your question, which is what's left. Now, there is still gas chamber on the books, I believe, in Arizona. And so does that become the alternative? Well, you may remember with the last gas chamber execution we had, before we went to execution, we had people coming out of that saying that there are better ways to put down animals
Right.
because of the particular suffering there.
Right.
Now, do we end up then with a whole other set of lawsuits?
Now, I'm almost kind of surprised that we haven't started looking at an alternative, just because the drug that was before the Supreme Court, we kind of put everything on hold with that drug after last year's botched execution. They said, well, we're just not going to execute anyone until we figure out what went wrong and how we can make sure it doesn't happen again.
Is this the kind of thing that could get traction at the next session down at the legislature? Someone going to pop this up and say, we better consider something?
Well, I think we'll know before the next session what the Supreme Court has ruled, and whether Arizona's current path is gets a roadblock in front of it or not. And if it does, I'm sure that we'll see some kind of alternative. Either certainly come out of the Department of Corrections, they'll have a new method, develop a new protocol, but there may be an option that comes to the legislature.
Well, and again, assuming that the only fallback position is the gas chamber, you may even find folks who are opponents of the death penalty saying, well, if we're going to keep executing people, should we have something more humane? Or conversely, there may be folks saying we'd like it to be as painful, if you will, as possible for the public to see how we're doing this, and maybe it'll build some opposition to the death penalty.
All right, we'll wait for the Supreme Court on that one. Howie, the governor believes that the climate is changing, but he does not believe or is skeptical of man-made causing.
Yes, this is, the governor finally waded into this perennial fight here about, is there such a thing as what used to be called global warming and now has been made climate change, because that sounds a lot better according to Republicans. And I think he's conceded, after looking at evidence and after being briefed by folks from the State Forestry Division and elsewhere, that yes, in fact, the climate is changing. Now, why is it changing? There are people who will say, well, look, we had the Sinagua Indians who lived here for years, and then their climate changed and they had to go away. This is a very pro-business governor. And I think he sees anything that links human cause, i.e. perhaps carbon dioxide from coal-fired power plants and the cheap source of power, or automobiles, as being bad for business, and therefore he's not quite ready to say we should be doing something about this.
Bad for business, but what about the reputation of the state? Does it play into any of this? Because, again, this makes headlines. The governor of Arizona does not. I think the quote was skeptical about what human activity has to do with it.
I don't know. I mean, is anyone really surprised at this? I wasn't. I mean, it's kind of a mainstream Republican position at this point, is that, yes, the stance now, the way it's kind of evolved over the years, it used to be, no, there is no global warming, there is no climate change, temperatures aren't going up, and that's evolved in a lot of cases to, yes, it is, but prove that it's because of man, and that it's not something natural, that it's not because of, either cycles or solar flares or whatever the case is. And so it's trying to deflect the argument. Is to basically say, well, you have to convince me that this is right, and you have to show me something that's 100%, I guess 100% proof,
Right.
which and it's moving the field goals, it's moving the goalposts on this issue, and it's a way to deflect away from having to do anything by saying, I don't really believe that there's anything we can do because it's not our fault.
I guess, I think I understand it's a mainstream position for Republicans or certain folks on the Republican side. However, it's not a mainstream scientific position. And if you're looking for this new technology, the new economy, the brightest of minds, this and that and the other, how are they going to take to something like this?
Well, what do scientists know anyway, right? Ask the people who don't want to be regulated. As Jim said, I think we all would have been stunned if Governor Ducey had said anything differently. And to a greater point, it's kind of a moot point, because even if Governor Ducey said, well, gee, I think this is caused by people, we should do something about it, what's going to happen in Arizona? We got a very conservative legislature who feels the way he does on this issue, and is obviously not going to do anything
And there are a lot of other things that may be keeping business away, including our investment in K-12 and universities and some of the rest of that. So it's not like this is going to be the thing that brought
but
camel's
I'm just
back.
adding on to those other things. I was just
sure.
wondering if that was even a
but,
possibility.
But this is consistent with his message. We're deregulating. It's sort of like, well, we don't need any regulations of Uber and all the rest of those things. I'm your governor. I will tell you.
We should mention the forecast for the fire season, by the way. The high country, relatively normal, but boy, when it gets down to the desert and the brush, looking bad.
And there was a lot of rain a lot of moisture.
Yes.
And what happens is you get the grasses. And then all of a sudden we haven't had any rain in a while. Guess what happened to the grasses?
Yeah.
And then the tiniest little thing, including, and we've seen this, I've been following, trailers being towed by trucks up a hill. And you see that chain dragging along the ground and creating sparks, and you know something's going to happen.
All right, Jeremy, the Medicaid expansion case, we had a little bit of a movement here in that the idea of the access director speaking up for all those who could be jeopardized by this expansion not happening didn't quite sit well with a Maricopa County judge.
No, the Arizona Center for Law and the Public Interest, which is a mainstay in lawsuits against the state for decades, they asked the Superior Court judge to allow 4 of their clients, 4 childless adults who are receiving access benefits, to intervene as defendants. Said, we don't trust Tom Betlach, the access director, to properly defend that because he serves at the pleasure of Governor Ducey, who is not a big fan of Medicaid expansion. He hasn't really, he's kind of split the middle here, kind of toed the line, hasn't really done anything to get rid of it, but has made clear throughout the campaign he's not a fan of that. Now, the center managed to unify both the defendants and the plaintiffs, Access and the Goldwater Institute, who both said, you should not be allowed to intervene, we can all handle this on our own. The judge disagreed and said, well, you have a point that, this guy serves at the pleasure of a governor. He's now defending a policy of his old boss, not his new one, and she said they will be allowed to intervene now.
And you hit on a key point there about the Goldwater Institute, because the governor has brought on as a health advisor somebody from the Goldwater Institute who has done treatises about why Medicaid expansion is bad, why Obamacare is bad. And so you got to wonder if this is the person whispering in the governor's ear about Medicaid expansion, and she was with the group that is representing the lawmakers who sued. How vociferous is that going to be, that defense of the law going to be?
And I mean, it does make sense. There's divided loyalty here with Betlach. I mean, he helped craft the doggone thing with the previous governor, and now he's serving at the pleasure of a governor who doesn't like what he crafted.
Yes, and I think that was exactly what was at issue here. I mean, and certainly I don't think any of us are really trying to say that he's not going to defend it, but I think that it exists the possibility that at some point in the future, the governor's prerogative could change on this issue. And if it does, I think that was really the point that Tim Hogan was making when he was trying to get these defendants on board. And the judge obviously saw some wisdom in that, in ensuring that the defense of this law is able to be made by, if not by the people who are in charge of administrating the law, then by the people who are directly affected.
And
have a
that was
stake
really
in the whole
key.
thing.
That was exactly what the judge said. She said they are defending their health care because if for some reason, even if Betlach does his best and it goes against him, somebody's going to say, well, wait a second. Now, if we're defending our own health care through the Center for Law, now we can say we're going to do the most vigorous defense. We're going to raise every possible issue here, whether it's the Constitution, whether it's a tax, an assessment, a 2/3 vote. We are going to raise every defense possible.
And we should mention real quickly, that is what the case is about, regarding whether or not an assessment is a tax and whether the Republicans, 36 some odd Republican lawmakers, were usurped by way of this particular action.
Yeah, we have Proposition 108 from the early 90s, which says any tax hike needs a 2/3 vote. This passed with a simple majority, and
it's not a tax. Don't you understand? You weren't listening to Governor
levy,
Brewer.
assessment, whatever you want to call it.
It's sort
Rose
of
by
a
any other name.
voluntary kind of assessment, squishy thing.
And the renovations at the State House of Representatives do not include a gym with showers in the basement.
Well, see, this has been an ongoing, fascinating question when we asked the Speaker about renovations, and he said, what renovation? I don't know nothing about no stinking renovations. We've talked about it on this table, and the Cap Times has done a great job of pursuing this and saying, well, wait a second here. They're concepts. Okay, they're concepts. So show us the concepts. Well, we can't show you the concepts. In fact, Jim did a public records request here, and take a look at
what exactly are we looking at?
The basement.
Oh,
I believe. Well, or the
I
the
love
first floor,
what
or the
they've
first
done
floor.
with
Yeah,
that.
sure.
Can't you tell the difference?
Yeah.
Because of the fact that somehow, if we know where the doors are and the light switches, this security will be breached. This is the kind of teeth pulling we've done. Look, the Speaker got caught doing something that his own members didn't want him to do, spending money when they've just cut K-12 education, bad optics and everything else, and so now he's real defensive about it.
Spending money when he just spent money on other renovations.
Well, and today, moments before the show began, about an hour before, the House gave us a statement that said, "We're not going to spend all this money. You know, we're going to do. We're going to scale back this project. Anything that had been discussed, not plans that were concrete, mind you, but anything that had possibly been discussed, the only things that are going to happen, they're going to replace some carpet that's old." And in doing so, when they take that carpet up, there's going to be some exposed asbestos floor tiles. Those will be taken out. We don't know quite what the cost of that is going to be. The House, we got some documents from the Department of Administration today that showed the actual estimate for the project, for this renovation. Originally, we'd heard that it was going to be about $1 million.
Yes.
Could never get that confirmed from Speaker Gowan's office. The DOA estimate from the Department of Administration is $2 million. $1.6 million for the basement, and then another $300,000 for some other renovations, and for the asbestos stuff. And so essentially, what we were told by the House today was, we don't think that Department of Administration estimate of about $340,000 for the asbestos is quite right.
Yes, but-
And we hadn't signed off on this. We hadn't moved forward on it. We would have. The Speaker absolutely would have signed off, or would have had a chance to say
Right.
no, put my foot down on this.
Come on, look. When 18 of 36 House Republicans, leaving the Democrats aside, send a letter to the Speaker saying, "What the hell are you doing?" You know, even he needed a way of backing away. And I love how he sort of threw his chief of staff under the
Well,
bus. It was my idea. I had nothing
threw
to
a
do
lot
with
of
it.
folks under the bus or into the showers or whatever the case may be. But he's not really backing down on this, is he?
Well, he kind of is now, and this seemed like the only way to go. I mean, after a week of it looking like they were going to go full steam ahead, today they're finally backing away a bit because there's so many angry people over there. And as it turns out, they've done a lot more work laying the groundwork for this than they'd also kind of made clear. That they'd been
interesting.
talking with contractors, exchanging emails, people wondering, hey, I'm seeing this in the news, is it getting bad press? Are we still good? Do we still have a deal? Are we still moving forward? What's going on?
So where do we go from here? Are we going to be able to work out and take showers there at the basement of the State House of Representatives?
Well,
it is the public's house.
Maybe you can run laps in the hallway, but I don't think that there's going to be any kind of workout facility, and certainly no showers. Maybe wash yourself in the sink if do a little water splash.
No gym or multi-purpose room?
I've been covering the house since '82, and it's been remodeled 6-7 times. The fact is, it is a horribly laid out building. It's one of these late 1950s block structures, no imagination. You're trying to fit 60 members plus all their staff in there in the same size building that fits 30 senators. There have been various plans to go ahead and build a new Capitol, have tunnels going to the old Capitol and everything else. At some point, something's going to need to happen, but you don't do this on the heels of cutting $99 million from the universities and basically telling K-12 education to suck it.
Yeah. Okay. The Corporation Commission is really, we've got elections a year some odd away, and a lot of folks are kind of nosing around, huh?
Yeah, just because the last election is only 6 months or so in the past doesn't mean we can't start looking ahead to the new one. There's going to be 3 Corporation Commission seats up for grabs, and even though only one of those seats is actually going to be open, there appears to be about 7 Republicans so far who are looking at that one empty seat. And I don't imagine they're all going to get in, but we're hearing so far Ken Bennett, the former Secretary of State, Representative Rick Gray, Representative Lovis, Rick Gray's wife, Senator Debbie Lesko, a few others.
Well, let's understand part of the reason. You don't want to know why lawmakers go to the Corporation Commission. It's a scam. It's called the Elected Officials Retirement Plan. And you're given, if you serve for 20 years, you're given 80% of your highest 3 years salary. So you could have served 16 years at $24,000 a year, and then you go to CorpCom and serve at $75,000 a year, and you walk away with 80% of $75,000. That's why they're all interested in this. It has to do with money.
Is this going to be a bloodbath, do you think? I mean, there's a lot of folks out there on the same side of the aisle.
I think there's almost certainly going to be a primary. I mean, we've, just from the chatter we've heard that there's a number of people that are seriously looking at it and are trying to be pushed or pulled in various directions. It seems hard to believe at this point, with an open seat, it's tough to clear the field and it's tough to keep people away, away from that. And so even if it's just 4 people, you've still got a primary, and you've still got the potential, really, in a low-profile race with not a lot of money for the candidates themselves. You could have an incumbent who ends up, getting ousted.
Well, and the other thing is we're going to have to see is what happens to all the APS things given the dark money that APS put in this.
Yes.
And if APS gets a lot of its way, there's going to be a lot of very unhappy voters out there.
All right, got to stop it right there. Good stuff, guys. Thanks for joining us. Monday on Arizona Horizon, we'll hear about efforts to legalize marijuana for recreational use in Arizona, and we'll learn about a new study that looks at officer-worn video cameras. That's Monday on Arizona Horizon. Tuesday, the latest moves to block the new tribal casino near Glendale. Wednesday, we'll look at just how much the state's economy is recovering. Thursday, food critic Howard Seftel talks about hanging up a fork after 23 years at the Arizona Republic. And Friday, it's another edition of the Journalists Roundtable. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.